time that has never happened. Perhaps you are mourning a person you have never been. Don't worry, dear listeners. Today is the day for all of that. Make sure you clear your schedule so that you can properly long for something you've never had.
You're in front of Cedro's house. It's rather large and old. The impressive two-story building looks aged, not dilapidated or run down, but rather that it has been standing for a long time. The paint is faded but not peeling. The windows hold vibrant, overgrowing plants that trail all the way down from the second-story windows to the lawn. Cedro opens the door and welcomes you in.
Don't get lost.
You don't know what he means by that. You follow him inside, through a hallway lined with mirrors on both walls, to what must be his kitchen. There are usual kitchen appliances here, like a stove and a fridge. There are several hand mirrors on the kitchen counter, although the glass appears to be misty or frosted over with something.
Can you get some juice from the fridge?
He turns to rummage through the cupboards for glasses for the two of you, as you make your way around his granite island counter to the fridge. Aside from a half-empty carton of juice, the entire fridge holds nothing but jars upon jars of blood. Large glass jars filled with blood line each shelf. Looking closer, you can see each jar has its own label made out of masking tape, Cedro's careful handwriting in Sharpie denoting each blood type. A positive, B positive, raccoon. Cedro's collection of blood appears to be as thorough as the rest of the man. You ask why he has so much blood.
Why wouldn't I have jars of blood?
You say nothing in response.
Come on.
Cedro leads you through a different but identical hallway. As you follow him in, you catch sight of yourself in one of the many mirrors lining the walls. You pause for a moment and look closer. The mirrors are all frosted over, so you can just see the vague outline of yourself. You move your hand to touch the mirror's surface, and you realize just what caught your eye. The reflection moves in the opposite direction you do. Rather than mirroring you, it shows you the opposite of your actions. You raise your glass of juice up, watching as the mirror lowers theirs. You turn to ask Cedro about the mirror, but he is nowhere to be seen. The hallway looks like it stretches on forever. It certainly looks much longer than anything that the modest house you drove up to could contain. You look down the hall, but it looks the same as far down as you can see. You open the closet door in search of Cedro. Inside is a wall-to-wall collection of guns, each one polished to a mirror finish. To your left is a rack of bayonet rifles, all carefully maintained. Some of the bayonets look nicked and scratched, but it's clear that all are handled with care. On a shelf above the bayonet rifles is a well-used rag and several bottles of what must be polish. It looks like he has spent hours upon hours going over every gun with the polish, cleaning off every speck of dust and polishing each weapon until the whole room shone. The right wall holds a similar rack, only these hold assault rifles. The black guns are huge and bulky, but uniformly together they make a striking image. Above the rifles is another rack, filled with extra magazines. The back wall houses a wide array of handguns, each of them unique. There are matte black guns, sleek in design with carefully designed handles. There are shiny silver six-shooters, their revolver chambers glittering. You even see a pair of dueling pistols, golden brass complementing a deep brown wooden handle. An astounding collection, but not what you're looking for. You close the door as you leave, and try the door on the opposite end of the hall. The room, in stark contrast to Cedro's gun collection, appears to be completely empty. The bare walls only have a light blue paint covering them, and the hardwood floor is completely bare. Completely bare, except for a cassette tape, so tiny you didn't even see it at first. The label is water-stained, whatever writing explaining the tape's contents long since bled past comprehension. Still no Cedro. Close the door. You look down the hall, back towards the kitchen, but you can't see it anymore. You look down the hall in the other direction, but it isn't a case of disorientation. You cannot find the kitchen. Despite Cedro's warning, you have gotten lost. You wander down the hall, searching for Cedro. You open one at random. He must be behind one of these doors. Inside is an incredibly large room. Directly ahead of you is a large red velvet curtain fringed with gold, luxuriantly framing a movie screen. There are rows upon rows of empty red velvet seats. When you touch the cushion of the nearest seat, you can feel soft plush. You take a seat and sink comfortably in the chair. The movie is grainy and old, flickering like an old reel projector. But the subjects in it are current. You recognize the cafe where you, Alex, and Cedro are drinking coffee. You watch a spirited debate, but there is no sound to accompany the film. You provide the dialogue with your own memory. After a few minutes, the movie ends abruptly, nothing but flickering white space and occasional stains. A few moments later, however, a new movie begins. A car you don't recognize drives down a street. It goes at a regular pace, not too fast, not too slow. But slowly, as dawn breaks, the car becomes more and more transparent, until 3 passengers are visible. You, Cedro, and Alex. Your mouths are moving, but you don't know what the 3 of you are talking about. As the car loses substance, the 3 of you tumble into the road. The film ends again, nothing but flickering white. You leave the theater. You don't know where you are. You don't remember Cedro's house, and have no memories to help guide you. You try a different door. This room appears much smaller and more cramped than any of the other rooms, filled practically to bursting with haphazardly placed knickknacks and boxes. In fact, this could hardly be called a room. From what you can see past the various clutter and accumulated junk, the space looks more like a closet than an actual room. A curious glowing light attracts your attention. You take a closer look, and it takes you several moments to understand what it is you're looking at. It is a radio, the same kind as the one in your apartment. Only Cedro has covered up the speakers, bits of white padding poking out from behind layers and layers of silver duct tape. Only the clock display, which glowed gently in the closet, remains uncovered. You reach for the radio, but it is firmly lodged in place. You tug it gently, but dislodging it also dislodges whatever delicate balance kept all the clutter in place. Junk rains down on you, including what appears to be a complete skeleton. You rapidly shove the radio back into place, sweeping everything as best as you can into the closet and closing the door against the tidal wave of things. Most definitely not Cedro. You continue wandering through the halls, occasionally drinking your juice. The only way you can tell time is actually passing is through the slowly draining amount of juice in your glass. Finally, you finish your juice. You decide to give another door a try. Inside is a single, large, full-length mirror. Or rather, what's left of one. The wooden frame is empty, and instead there are glass shards scattered in an arc towards you. The floor is covered in water dripping from the empty mirror frame. Looking carefully, you notice indentations in the water, spaces where something had stepped. The shape is regular, spread like the gait of a creature, but the footprint looks like nothing you have ever seen before. Cedro appears at your shoulder.
Sorry I'm late. I had to put Mrs. Oldsfield back into the closet after you knocked her loose.
He catches sight of the state of the room and simply sighs.
Of course it escaped again.